Okay, welcome back, folks. Uh, let's just debrief a little bit about what we heard this morning. Dan, I'm going to refer to you because you are the expert in this area.
I don't know if I'm the expert, but I definitely am interested in some of our first parts of our discussion where we were talking about people moving from skilled nursing facilities to home and community-based providers, whether it's res care or maybe back home. I would just be interested in like, are there barriers for people? And how do we make it easier for them to go from like rehab in a nursing home to maybe being in the nursing home for a while? But is there a way that people can then go to res care, assuming it's available and meets their needs, or even go home with supports at home? Because if we can move down the continuum of care in terms of cost, in keeping with their, so that was kind of early in our conversation, and I'd be interested in hearing more about that. But then also workforce. I mean, I think a lot of the drivers are, as we can clearly see, workforce, and I just am wondering about some of the programs that we've been implementing around engaging people in nursing and I've talked about this. We've been talking about this for years. Like, how do you get people into this line of work? And is there even enough to deal with, like, what are the actual needs? Like, we saw ratios and percentages, but it'd be interesting what the like actual numbers are. And is there any way that these are obtainable, and what's the plan to get there?
Yeah, I think the one of the things that I was just kind of striking to me was I appreciate that there's this kind of intensity of focus on assuring that our skilled nursing facilities remain intact and remain viable businesses. It's a support that we need for Vermonters. What I sort of continue to be concerned about is that we don't have that same sense of intensity around home and community-based.
Right.
Around the lower level options. We have the same discussion when it comes to DCF. We were just talking about it just downstairs.
High-end
About prevention.
systems of care.
High end, and I think we've proven over the last 30 years that the lower cost services, and people generally want to stay in their home communities and in their own homes as long as possible. And yet we don't have that same kind of attention. And I can tell you right now that they're in fact finding between the department / agency, human services, and the workers who do the direct care, who are paid through ARIS.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not even offering $20 an hour.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't get any health insurance, and they make it as hard as possible. Excuse me. They have like paid time off. It's this, combined time off. You can use it for sick time or, vacation or whatever. And they make it so difficult for people to use that.
Right.
So like if a client dies, they lose whatever time has been accumulated for that person, if that person was their employer. And I'm just like, yeah, that's not right.
Right.
And it sounds like they're making a few strides, but that sort of direct care. I know I've helped a friend do it, for many years now. It is, can be backbreaking. It can be very intensive. You can be dealing with things that other people just really have no concept about, and they won't even pay $20 an hour for that direct care. And that I just am.
I work for them last summer.
It makes
And when you
no
look
sense.
at that and the amount of money that we've been investing in the extraordinary financial relief for nursing homes for the last several years, I mean, that is just startling, right? Like that on the lower end, people are barely making $20 an hour.
They're not even close to $20 an hour.
And on the
No.
highest end, we're spending millions and millions and millions on for-profit companies that.
Yeah, it's.
Well-
And then another thing that was really interesting to me, and we had discussions about this earlier, is like just the makeup of the workforce, like how many of these professionals are living in Vermont, just driving, you know, over the 50 miles? Like that to me is a huge kind of a red flag.
30,
Like
how much?
50 miles.
Yeah, but it's so much more money,
Yeah, three times.
three
more
times the money.
Well, yeah, you have to be careful because the people doing the work don't get 3 times more.
No.
It costs the organization
Right,
3 times more, and it's costing us taxpayers 3 times more. But it's the organization that employs those people that's getting the big, I mean, they make more than they would.
Yeah, and I'm
but-
not blaming the workforce. I mean, the
No, no, no.
workforce is going
I just-
to go where the, you know, their best
Yeah.
financial decision for themselves, if they can make it happen. I mean, anybody would do that, but it's like we're giving the wrong incentives to the organization.
Right.
We're incentivizing them to hire more. You know, that's the way it
Contracted
shakes
workers.
out.
Right,
Like,
because
right?
then when it's rebased, it's based
They're
upon
getting
those
the higher
expenses.
rate. Yeah.
I do want to ask them, because I didn't think of this now, is in that tab 5, the nursing staff employee to contracted travel ratio. Wondering if we could break that out even more so we can get a better picture of what type of worker is the actual shortage, because it looks like,
Yeah, they. lump
They
them
have
all
LPN,
together.
nurses, aides,
Yeah,
and
that's a good
RNs.
point.
because I think part of how if we have a shortage of RNs or LPNs or LNAs, how can we target through, is it educational support so we can create more? I think having that kind of breakdown will help us be able to, like if it's LNAs, like that's a 6-week course, like we could be
Yeah.
paying that, that would be an easy thing. RNs, obviously, LPNs is a little harder, but I think getting that kind of information, if there's, those shortages will help us figure out, be able to find solutions.
I know at Central Vermont Hospital, just because, I go there, it is that they actually have, they have an in-house curriculum for advancement into RN. So it's all paid for, they're growing their
Oh, that's
own, like
cool.
right from
Yeah.
within. So I'm like, and they were talking about this it must have been a Washington County presentation of some sort, I don't remember, but I like, that's cool. I mean, and like to what
That is really
extent are, some of these larger nursing homes, are they investing in that kind of development that they could, like you said, grow their own RNs? And in some cases, I think it's a high percentage of the nurses' aides, the LPN, or the LNA.
Yeah.
That is what's being contracted out for at this point in time. But yeah, it would be helpful to sort of have that breakdown. And
And they're also the lowest paid.
they are the
If
most-
that is true,
yeah.
like that's probably the easiest. I mean, like I said earlier, I worked as an LNA. I was a young single mom. That's how I went through college, is I worked nights on the memory care ward at Helen Porter.
Mhm.
And my friend stayed with my child, and it allowed me to work and, do my homework in between calls and things. But it's a really hard job. You're doing those basic activities of daily
Daily living,
living.
yeah.
And that's one where I think if we just paid them more, we could probably incentivize. A lot of people are looking for work that can pay well, that can support their families. So if that's truly, in my head, I was thinking this was a problem of needing like a lot of RNs, but
We don't really know.
we don't know.
The data.
But that part of that little piece of the puzzle, I think is the easiest fix. So yeah, I
Also
Hopefully we can get more
understanding,
info.
like getting a assessment of like best practices, like something you cited in Central Vermont, like if that's something that can be modeled across the state and, Dale in conjunction with Diva can kind of like present it to you know, when there's an application for an EFR, or if they're being proactive, to your point, like before getting to that emergency point, like, here are some things you should be trying that we know will work, that other organizations have had success with.
We are gonna, Helen Laban, who,
Yes.
you know, we've had here before, she was listening and
Mhm.
she is, you know, wants to come in, and they actually have surveyed their, members, and she has some information and data she would like to present as well. So we're inviting her in to do that.
Yeah, you almost think like for the amount of money we're spending on EFR, is there a possibility of putting some money into how to get out in front of that? And would it reduce it enough? You know, what would be the measurement? How do we know that would be a good investment? Like, because maybe that's something we should be talking about, like whether they're at Dale or whether it's like outside with a private contractor that's like trying to bring all of these together so that we don't end up with
Yeah,
this.
I hear you. I think, because of the way the rate setting system is set up right now, the sort of perverse incentive is already being realized.
Yeah.
In increased rates. So that's the real reason why the number of EFRs are coming down, because
They're
the
not
rates,
getting.
the rates have now been adjusted to reflect all of those contracted
Yeah.
services. And so they're getting higher rates now.
Plus it's 3%, right?
What's 3%?
Their annual.
Statutory increase is 3.5.
No, it's based on a formula.
It's a form.
Yeah, it's based on a
So
formula.
But it's-
but
they
they're
do
getting an annual.
Right.
Getting an annual
They do
increase.
rebasing
And
and,
annual.
And COLA.
yeah. It's the only place in state
Right.
government that has happened, and, you know,
So maybe
there
it
would
was
be
last year it was 3%.
it's,
You know, what's that look like over 10 years? Have we increased those rates on top of, you know, is this making it so that, yeah, how can they afford 30% more workforce at those levels?
yeah, well, and we don't actually know the vacancy rates, the staff vacancy rates. You know, we knew what proportion of the,
Yeah.
you know, are contracted versus employees, and
But that didn't show their.
it doesn't show like,
Capacity.
yeah, what's the vacant
Yeah.
positions? What are the capacity issues? And one of the other things that a gentleman by the name of Bart Hill used to produce at Dale, he's since retired, but we could see the vacancy rate month to month at every facility.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, we should add
The-
for
We need
that.
a
Well, the
monthly
Dale-
report.
yes, the Dale
Yeah.
website is not easy to navigate. Even for people who
Work in
understand
state.
it, I understand all the terminology, and I still can't find it. So, because we talk about what we hear is that there isn't a lot of vacancies, but then you see on the EFR in 2025, at least 2 or 3 of them was because of low occupancy that they got EFR. You don't get any money if you don't have any people there.
Right.
And so I'm like, low occupancy, it's like, it just doesn't compute, right?
Yeah.
So, so we're not going to take any particular action on this year, but,
We have some ideas.
this is right. I think like, one thing Ray and I were researching during the break was, what's the requirement about, my distance for a travel? What makes it a traveler? Well, there's the industry sets it.
Okay.
And the common industry standard is 50 miles,
Mhm.
but it's as high as 200 in some places. And so there's no federal statute, there's no IRS thing, it literally is set by the industry. That's something we could have an impact on here. What would be considered a traveler?
Yeah.
Now, you can imagine that would bring quite a few people out of the woodwork. But is it a problem that solves itself? Or is it something that we need to take proactive measures about because, you know, we saw this reaction after COVID.
We're 6 years
But-
out.
But, right, we're 6 years out now and we are so far an outlier on this and I just don't see sufficient progress being made. You know, when you look at some of those ratios of, contracted to,
Only 3 of them are at or below the national
National.
average.
right,
Which is
And the
a
other
huge
thing,
issue.
I mean, I appreciate the department's efforts, you know, they are taking this seriously and they have been working, the numbers are coming, you know, trending the right direction, but when you're thinking about, you know, Commissioner Bowen said, you know, these are extraordinary. Extraordinary is not supposed to be 9 out of what, it's 33? Like extraordinary should be 1 or 2. You know what I mean? So like, when you think about it in that way, when you have such a high number that are, it's still a big problem. So, you know, I'd be curious to see what the next set of numbers shows as far as how many applications during, I'm sure BA next year in January.
Well, they actually show in the report, not the spreadsheet, but in the report, they give us FY 26 data
Oh, okay. I didn't
to
look
date.
that deeply.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's smaller. It's going to be smaller because their rates have
The
now
rates
been
are
increased,
higher,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's, like I said, that's the perverse incentive that we have. Well, it's not perverse. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is that I recognize that we have to pay the cost of care, okay? There's so many elements that go into that and there's so many outside influencing factors. Like, how much are people paying in real estate costs? You know, what are their operating costs? You know, the management fees, you know, we saw that
Mhm.
hospitals are the ones that are owned
The
by
hospitals.
hospitals, the management fees have, we don't know if they disallowed them or what, but that was one of the reasons for needing both at Helen Porter and at Woodridge. So there's a lot to dig into, but honestly, we have more data now than we ever
Yeah, no,
had.
this,
So,
that's really great. Yeah.
This is so important.
yeah. Okay, so have a good lunch, everybody.
Thank you.
We'll be
Thank
back
you.
at 1 o'clock, having some, oh no, not here. We'll be on the floor at 1. Don't forget, we have an amendment
Yes.
on 657 that Representative Arsenault will be offering and Jubilee will report our committee's discussion on that. And Representative Steady is presenting a bill as well on 210. So